I'm going to make an autumn wreath today, and so what I've got is some beautiful, beautiful blue hydrangea, and I'm going to use that as my base. And then I really love putting some limes into a wreath, whether it be a Christmas or autumn. So I've bought a few limes, and I'm going to put that in. And then I think I'm going to pick some Chinese lantern because I want it to be really zingy in colour. Chinese lantern is an extraordinary plant. I remember my neighbour, when I lived in London and had a tiny garden, gave me a plant of Chinese lantern, and I actually did rather rue the day that he gave it to me, because it's incredibly invasive and it absolutely romps away, and you can see that here it's just completely taken over, like mint just takes over the whole bed. But at this time of year it's one of the best possible things to use for picking, and it dries. So if you remove the leaves and you just leave the pods, it dries fantastically and keeps its colour. And the agapanthus pods are great. You can pick them when they've still got their little baubles on the end, but I actually like them just as much without the baubles, where they look like a sort of mad sparkler, rather like an allium. And so I'll get some of those. And actually I think I'm going to get some fennel too, because this all smells so wonderful. But you don't have to use rosemary. I could use willow or dogwood or silver birch, anything, or anything pliable at this time of year. Perhaps with some turning leaves would work just as well as rosemary if you don't have enough. I'm going to use this as my base, just like you would for a Christmas wreath. And the first thing to do is to put a loop on the back, if you're wanting to hang it on the door. Now I'm actually pretty sure that I'm going to make mine just to sit in the middle of the table, but just in case I change my mind, I'm just going to put a hoop of wire to hang it from, and it's much easier to do it now at the beginning than it is at the end. So my hoop's done. Now the next thing that I want to do is to pad out the wire base. So I'm just going to add a bunch that goes across the wire base, just like that, and then I'm going to wire it in with the real wire. So I'll just attach that firmly in one place and leave it hanging, and then so on goes my rosemary. So then I wire that in. And then I come along again and add in another 3. So that's my base done. So now the next thing I want to do is to lay out my dominant things, and I'm going to break down a head of hydrangea to these sort of sizes, but I just want to show you how you can wire it, and this makes securing it onto the wreath easier. Now hydrangea dries really well, so that's why I've chosen it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert a stout bit of stub wire right up the middle of the hydrangea like that. And that's quite firmly attached, but I'm going to use some finer wire and go across. And so then very carefully, because I don't want to bruise the stem, I push that through the hydrangea like that. So I've got a T-junction basically, and then I don't need that whole length, so just gently again I pull it back, and And then again, really careful not to tear the stem, the flesh, because that will then bruise it and the flower will drop off the stem. I then just manoeuvre it round and then wind the longer end of the finer wire around the shorter end of the finer wire and the thick main stem wire. That can then go through, and you're very, very firmly able to attach the hydrangea by just pushing gently, don't pull, push, and then just make sure that you ease the wire through and then bend it back again. And then that's firmly attached. And then I'm going to go sort of, I don't want to go exactly in a equilateral triangle, so slightly off, like that. And then always push gently, not pull, because you might pull the central stem out. Good, so I've got my sort of 3 markers in place, and then what I'm going to do is use some Chinese lantern. And the Chinese lantern, I need to get rid of the leaves, because they will of course flop out of water. Now I think I'm going to bunch these together. So I'm going to take it to here and make a little bunch. I just literally make a sort of curvy grip really with the end of one of the stubs. And so that then goes through like that, and then just again just fold it back in. Great. Bare stem ends off. So now I'm going to add some borlotti beans, and I'm going to make these into bunches of about 4 or 5, I think, piled up like that. 4 is probably enough. Just pull that down so it's not too prominent. Add them into the general bunches, just the same way. And then just feed that through and around, feed that through and around. Great. So I've got the Chinese lantern and the hydrangea and the borlotti in place. And then really from this point on, now what I want to do is, because I think of that as my sort of zone 1, which is the most colourful zone, and now I just really want to infill my zone 2, which is with the agapanthus and the fennel seed pods. Now this is where the whole frame comes into its own, because I should be able to somehow just lace these through without having to wire. And so I can literally with these just sort of bung them in pretty much and then tuck them back out. And so this should be the much quicker part because I don't have to do the wiring. And then once I've got a few in, I can then wire all at the back together. Right, and then, just to make sure it's sort of caught, I just loop round the back with one of the stronger stub wires and just come round to the front and then just bind. And that, I'll show you, I'll turn it around in a minute. And that will just make sure that all those stems are bound in, so they should be safe. Then the fennel. So this I'm just going to dip right the way through it, really, wherever I've got enough of a gap in the frame to loosen it and to sort of make it a bit messier. As much as it's pretty at the moment, it's a bit tidy for me. So this is really all about just loosening it a bit, and I've still got a way to go. It's still looking a bit too tidy for me. So I'm just going to keep going until I feel that it kind of feels abundant enough, really. When one adds one always then has to add another. We'll get there in a minute. That's good. Now I have bought some limes, but I'm not going to use them because I think that it's really nice just to have everything from the garden. And I feel that these really do what the limes do, the Chinese lantern green pods. So we're there, I think. So I just want to neaten up where I've just poked through the fennel. I'm just neatening up those so that it sits happily on the table. So there we are. And then it looks lovely just with a candle placed in the middle. I don't know how long that's taken, maybe 45 minutes I suppose, including the picking. But really lovely to make, you know, at a weekend when you've got a bit of time. And so there you are, your table autumn wreath.